Alright, welcome back to the channel, and before I discuss my next build over here, I just want to give a quick thanks to Dan the Man at the 60s Rule channel for this holiday card, Christmas card that he sent me quite a while back, and especially by the time you see this video it'll be even more dated, but thank you, Dan. Now, the Fireball 500. I will be building this for a group build, the Psychedelic 60s group build, held by Dan the Man. Had a lot of fun last year. I participated. I made a monkey mobile, which I had a lot of fun building, and here's my medallion for the participation in that group build. And I said right away, if he has another one, I'm going to be joining it, because the whole the theme of a 60s is so rich and fodder. So many things you can pick that is befitting that theme, and again, a lot of fun. Now, the Fireball 500 card that you see in front of you here, I didn't know much about this until I actually saw a video that was put up by my local hobby shop, where they have their car group build guys that get together once a month and build cars. And they showed he showed all the builds that were made a particular month, and I saw this thing and I didn't know anything about it, so I asked about what is that, and they said a Fireball 500. So I really liked it, and I said I've got to see if I can get one. And I looked online, and sure enough, there was somebody very soon after who posted a whole bunch of cars that they were selling. Some were still in the boxes, sealed. Some were started, opened, questionable. And he listed this one for $10. And as it so happened, he was coming to a local show within the next few weeks or a month or so. And I said, listen, bring it along. I want to take a look at it. And when I got there and I opened it up, I found not one, but two Fireball 500s. Anyhow, I gave a quick look over just to make sure that, all the parts were there. It's not quite two cars, but all the essentials are there in good shape. The body, the tub, the under chassis, and the windows especially, because I really want to make sure those were okay. So I did a little research on this thing over here, and basically this came from a movie called The Fireball 500. And this is what I mentioned in my last video. This is where Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon comes in, and Fabian, the teen heartthrobs from the 60s, where they made all those beach movies. And one of the last movies they made was this Fireball 500. Now, I did watch the movie. It's a little corny, but actually not that bad. But this car is, it's about a big race, that, one of those NASCAR races back from the day. But this car is not raced in the movie. It's other cars that go around. They use a lot of stock footage and a lot of explosions and accidents and crashes and fire, you name it. Watch the movie, what can I say? But interestingly enough, when I looked at this kit over here, it is a George Barris design of Batmobile fame, and it looks really, really cool. I just like the layout, and I'm gonna build it pretty much stock, or as seen over here. I did go through to make sure all the smaller parts are there. I think I accounted for everything. I think I should be okay with no issues in the build with missing parts. But one thing I noticed is when looking at references of the car itself, which is actually not shown very often in the movie, there seems to be like a little gold or yellow between the white and the red over here, and that's really what this car is about, is that paint job. So I'm debating, do I build it like this, or do I try to put that gold yellow in there? I'm not too sure what I'm going to do there, but definitely it's going to look more or less like this. Now, one thing I was thinking about doing is also adding LEDs for the lights. Now, the problem there is there's not really a clearly defined hood or a trunk where I could make it so I can easily put some the batteries for those LEDs. I want to put them over here, and you can barely see the lights behind this grill, and that's where they would go. I'm not even sure, I don't recall if there's the lights, if you want to call it that, are parts in the kit that I could actually take and replace with LEDs, and not have it leak all over the place, because it is an open grill. So I'll have to think about that, maybe try it out, see if it works or not. But definitely The rest is going to be pretty much stock. Now, one thing about this kit is that there are different versions that have a trailer. And as a matter of fact, when I opened this up, he had, 2 sets of instructions. One seems to be photocopied and this other one over here. And I've seen other people making it, and the first thing they build is this trailer. Now, my kit doesn't have the trailer, and I'm just wondering if these instructions are from a separate box, because this box, nowhere does it mention the trailer. This is seems to be a 2000 issue of this kit. So I don't know. But the thing about the trailer is, in the movie, there's actually Richard Petty. And he actually, they use stock footage of him driving. But a lot of people, what they do is they make that Richard Petty number 43 car, and they put that on the trailer, which would have been nice. But I don't have it, so no Richard Petty for me. But I can begin my build now. Okay, so I thought I'd give you a quick view of what I have to work with over here. Again, when I opened up that box, there were more or less 2 kits inside. And I was quite worried because the first piece I picked up was this, and I could see, oh, somebody's done some work there. There were parts glued on over here. And but then I picked up the other body, and it's pristine. I mean, it hasn't been touched. It is perfectly fine. They're both buckets, and the underside chassis were painted. But again, I have 2 workable sets. There's nothing wrong with this other than it needs to be, reprimed and painted. I looked at the tires afterwards when I got home, and I've tried to sort them out in the piles, and I'm hoping that these were the originals that went with the kit. They're a little bit bigger than those, and somebody, I don't know, they made like 3 of them white walls, but not the 4th, and I think those are just, stuck on. I don't think it's paint. I think it's a little kind of like a tape on there. But I can definitely do something with that. I'll try to confirm that these are the, what's supposed to go with the kit. Now, interestingly, the engines, there were 3 of them in various stages of, being worked on. And I don't know why 3, but again, this is perfectly workable. And more importantly, when I went through all the parts, that you need to build the engine, I have them. They're either on these sprues, slightly painted, or they're in that sprue. This is a complete sprue set over here. And on this side over here, what I consider the junk parts, there's tons of, parts that were either painted or glued, but again, still workable. So I think I'm okay with that. And again, when it came to the glass, I have 2 nice pieces of clear glass, and there's 2 in here also, but I think these have been glued. Anyhow, I'm still okay with that. The one thing that I have only one of, and that's okay, is these beautiful decals, and they seem to be fine. I really want to put the Fireball 500, the Fireballs decals, and the Plymouth decals, and I'm not sure about the rest, if I'll use them or not. But I have a set of decals, so I think I'm okay. Again, this stuff over here, the dash, the radiator, they've been painted, but when I look at it, they're still, they haven't been messed up. They're fine. I'll just reprime them and repaint them based on whatever paint scheme I go for the interior. And last but not least, I do have 3 axles, so 2 should be fine. I'm hoping they're the right size. I see one is a lot longer, but I can easily scrounge up something for that. So I've got everything I need to start with, I believe. Okay, you see the fancy colors, but before I get into that, one thing I failed to mention last time is that this car, the original body of the car, it was a Plymouth Barracuda, so I thought I'd mention that. And you can use Barracuda reference photos for some of this build over here. So as you can see, I've reprimed and painted a number of pieces, but I really want to get to the body right away, because this is, the crux of the whole build, is getting that paint job right. So as I think I mentioned before, I thought I was going to go, instead of the gold that's really here, to use a yellow. It looks more like a flame, at least to me, and I think it just looks better than with the gold. So I ended up getting this paint job done. Not too bad, especially I like the top over here, the blend, to get that right. But it had its issues. I had a few problems with the paint, getting it done. You can see it's a little more glossy here than there, and But this is going to be glossed over at the end, so I don't think it's going to matter right now that, one part's a little shinier. I actually ended up using every drop of, red Tamiya paint I had. And just like the last time when I did the Monkey Mobile for the same group build last year, this red from Tamiya, for some reason, it comes out a little pinkish for me. But it'll do. I'm not going to go and repaint this. At least I doubt it. And I'm very happy with the way it looks. Now, one thing I'm going to do, or I think I can do, is actually, which I haven't done in a while, is to wire up the engine. Because this, I believe, will be able to lift it after when it's all built. It's kind of like a little hinge on that thing. I don't know if you can see there. Anyhow, so I thought I'd give it a shot. I haven't done this in a while. I've made some really nice distributors where I drilled all the holes, and I made some cheap ones a long time ago, a whole bunch of them. So I thought I'll just use one of the cheap ones. But more importantly, I had the yellow wire, which I think will look good in there. And then I went with a dark red on the engine over here, but I still have to finish building that off. One nice aspect of it that I haven't seen before in a kit is the belt over here has actually got a ridged inner edge, which is kind of neat. I don't know if it's common or not. I don't build that many cars, but I've built quite a few, and this is the first time I've seen a ridged edge in there. I'll try to get a nice photo, which again, a little bit of added realism there. And the last thing I want to say is the so-called white walls on these tires. They were just taped, so I only had 3 of the tires with the white wall. They look nice, but I had to remove them because I wasn't going to replicate that white, and now I have all black tires. So a little progress, but looking good. All right, check out that motor. Came out really nice. I said I was going to try wiring it up, and I did. Now, I used the wire wrap wire, 30 gauge for the yellow wire, and the boots over there, that's just another slightly larger wire that I found where I can insert the 30 gauge wire. And I just CA'd them with this little thing that I made long ago to apply CA glue to just specific spots. It's just a needle, sewing needle, and I just, lop off the top where the loop is, so you have a little U, and you can dip that in your CA and then really get exactly where you want, and that worked really great. One thing I had to do is I was really concerned about the height when you put that in the engine. As a matter of fact, I took a picture to see like how much clearance I have over the top, and it's just about the height of the motor itself, so that's why everything kind of like droops really low right away, and that's just so that to make sure it'll fit once you get it in the car there. And the funny thing is, this is another set of instructions where they tell you to build a motor, but they never actually tell you to put it in the car. So, but it should look nice. I think I mentioned earlier on that one piece I'm missing so far is a hose that's going to go to the radiator. And again, for that, I'm just going to use some wiring. Now, I got a few options. I went through my all the different wires I have, and I have tons. I could use this rubber that's empty over here, or this is actually a wire that I can strip. And I found this older wire. Now this is for when you have stuff that gets hot, and actually it might even be asbestos in there. I don't know, because they used to put asbestos in the wires. What's nice about this is if you see it, it looks like it's a shielded hose, exactly for that, for heat, and they wrap those around just to make them a little more stronger. Now the problem with this is when I cut it, you can see it opens up, it starts to flailing, and everything flails and comes apart. But what I think I can do here is put a dab of CA where I cut it, and have it kind of like soak in, so I have a clean cut. Anyhow, that'll be at the end when I put it into the car, so we'll see how that goes. I hand painted the seats over here, and also the headrests, and the steering wheel, and I tried to get like a leather effect over there, and this is all hand painted. And what I did first was put craft paint, black craft paint, very lightly over it to cover everything. And once that was all done, what I used is actually Mod Podge. Now, for those of you, now this is gloss Mod Podge, and for those of you who looked at the Nautilus submarine a while back, or sorry, I think it was, anyhow, one of my other videos, I did a painting, and I noticed that if you put Mod Podge and you just put barely enough, like you're not soaking it. You just put barely enough. What you can do is you can take your brush and you can streak it very lightly, and it makes a fine grain. And I thought that would kind of look like leather if I did it over something like this. And I do like the effect. It is kind of a leather look, and so I'm really happy with that. Went a little bit with the Molotov chrome pen in there to give a little accent in the rest of the tub. And I think I'll give you a before and after look, before when I had the craft paint on this, and then after I put the leather, the Mod Podge for the leather. You can see the difference, how much of a difference there is. The last thing I did is I made the dash over here, or started working on the dash. If you can see that in. And again, I just cut out, I don't have decals for that, so I had some paper cutouts for the dials, for the larger ones. And then I'd put, the drop of UV to give them a, clear glass front over there. So not too bad, coming along. Okay, in the segment, I've got a few updates. I've got one mod that I made and a warning. So let's first look at the decal over here. So I got the decal on. They're not the greatest decals. Actually, one of them broke on me. I didn't use the decal solution over them. I thought I would be okay. And one of them cracked, but I was able to slide it back into place, so it's hardly noticeable. But even with the solvents, the microsol there, they don't really, seep into the cracks. And I do have some silvering, no matter, I put like 3 coats of that microsol, and it still didn't sink in. So it'll have to do. I can't do anything about that. Now, I've put together the bucket over here with the parts that go in, and there's a little fire extinguisher, and I used some it's a chrome piece, so I put the clear red to make it nice and shiny. Now I put it a little too high in the, they don't tell you exactly, they just said put it on this side over here, and I should have put it a little lower, because now it's kind of covered a bit by the dashboard, but it's okay. Anyhow, it's something to think about if you're going to make the kit and do that yourself. Maybe you want to reposition it, but it'll still work. I'm happy with it the way it is. Now the slats on these little windows, first of all, I don't know if you can see that there. Let's see if you can zoom in. I got them to fit, but the red clear that goes over that is really tight. So you have to go in basically with an emery board between those slats so that the chrome pieces will fit through. And I had to file quite a lot to get it really, back to back and to have them fit in that way. But I managed to do it. And they're a little tricky actually to install because they're at a slant. So I finally got them in, and I used some sprue glue just to make sure that they don't pop out, because if they ever pop out, you'll never get them back in there. They'll be all hidden away. So make sure you get them in nice and solid like I did over here. Now, one thing I did try out was I mentioned I want to use this, hopefully use this as the radiator hose that I'm missing, and that's that shielded wire. And I did try putting some CA on this end over here and then cutting it to see if I get a nice clean cut, and it seems to do the trick. So I think I'll be able to use this piece at the very end when I have the motor connected to the radiator. Now, one mod I did, I've never done this before, but I said I'm going to try to put some terminal cables, the wiring on the car battery. Now when I do, to do this kind of a mod, there's like little stubs for terminals on this thing. You can't really glue much on it, much less try to have a nice wire look like it's, on a metal terminal. And I did some calculations, and I needed a 1 millimeter stub as the terminal itself from the battery. So, I looked up, there's some, reference charts to see, what gauge do you need for what diameter, because it is kind of tricky. It's not very precise, like they don't align nicely to numbers, but roughly I needed an 18 gauge wire. Now I've got tons of wires, 22 gauge, 30 gauge, house wiring, 18, and but I started trying to figure out what could I use for 18 gauge, and I looked up a few things, and one thing that popped up, one source for 18 gauge clear copper, single strand wire is using coax cables. Now there's 2 types of coax cables. There's RG6 and RG59, and there's a big difference between them. RG6 is the thinner stub, like this one over here. I'll put a nice picture online so you can see it really close to see that that stub is a lot thinner. That's more like 20 gauge, and the thicker one here is 18 gauge. So this is RG59. Now this is the old cables that you used to use in the house for analog signals, you know, old style TV signals from your cable company. And the RG6, that's for digital cable mostly, including satellite. So every time you see some satellite wiring, that's RG6, and that's what you want to get 18 gauge that I use on those terminals over there. And basically it's a tricky process, because first you got to strip out the outer, you know, rubber wire. Then you'll see that there's a sheathing over here that's you know, braided wires that you have to, you know, kind of strip out. You basically pull along the edge so that they kind of straighten out, and at one point you can, you know, slip it all off. Now in the RG6 you will find this, another shielded shield, which is, you know, what makes the RG6 much better, and that's, you only find the RG6, and this is just like a copper foil, so you can really strip that out. But then on the interior there's the insulation over the copper wire itself, and that is like solidly on. You're not going to strip that. What you have to do is go in with a blade and slowly shave it off, most of it, and you don't have to worry about, you know, breaking the wire or anything. It's thick wire. And then once you do, you'll see there's little, you know, little bits still stuck on, and basically you just can use your fingernails to go slowly over it, and you get a nice clean copper wire after that. And what I just did is make two little snippets, and then before, you know, putting him into the battery over here, what I did is I soldered very thin, you know, the 30 gauge wire that I use as the actual wire that goes to the battery. And I did 2 or 3 loops over that, soldered that. And then what you do is you cut, you know, in between, so you have like stumps that you can glue in afterwards. And on the other end, you basically file it down slowly, slowly, slowly. And if you do it correctly, what you'll end up is with nice terminals where you can actually see the copper as the terminal on the battery, and then it kind of looks like a clamped wire that goes around on it, just like in a regular car. So that, as a first try, I was very happy with that, and I can now have a wired battery in the car. Now, I did, these lights will go behind this grill over here, and I kind of mentioned it's all open, so I was thinking of lighting it up, but it won't make sense with all that opening. You'll see all the stuff, you know, you don't want to see. That's not usually in a car. But to distinguish it from the chrome grill, what I did is I took some, you know, clear yellow so that they'll be clearly different when, you know, when you look behind or whatever you can see. Now, here's the warning. On the instructions, they ask you to first glue this under in there, and then in step 6 they said to put the grill, but that doesn't make any sense at all, because this is going to cover that grill. So they actually ask you to kind of like slip it through. If you look at the instructions, it says zigzag zig and go in there, and that's just nonsense. Just glue this grill in there before you put the radiator wall in. It's so much easier. That's all I can say. So I'm at that point now, and a few more things to go. All right, I'm calling the Fireball 500 done. Now, I did have a few issues with the final build process, but before we get into that, one thing I wanted to clarify was the decal. Now, as you saw, this was the decal that came with my sheet, but there are some different versions of this kit that come with the older decal, that is the one that you see in the movie, you know, on the car in the movie. And I believe there's some kits that have both. So it's something you might want to consider, is checking out which one, if you have a particular preference, before you get the kit. Now, I did have an issue getting the radiator wall in there. Again, it goes right up against the grill, and that basically means it has to be over here. But then I noticed if I tried to, you know, it would touch the underside of the bottom chassis over there. So what I just did is I trimmed off a little bit of that chassis to make sure that there would be no issues for fitting that in. But I did still run into fitting with the battery. And again, the instructions are very vague. They just say place it somewhere on this wall. As you can see, I didn't want to put it all the way to the top, so I put a little lower and a little off to the side over there. But even had I put it all the way next to the radiator, and I believe all the way to the top, I still think it would have hit the inner wall over here by the tire. So what I basically did it is I just trimmed a bit of the battery off on the bottom, made it a little smaller, to fix my particular issue. Something that you want to, again, probably see if you can fit before you glue it in there. I hate vague instructions. What can I tell you? Now, something that is I don't like about the kit, and you can see it already over here, that's this gas cap. It is vastly overscale, at least in my opinion. And even though I file down probably 1/3 of that gas cap, it still sticks out quite a lot. It's still, way too much. So if you have a spare gas cap, I would go with that. I did not have a spare. And if you're going to use this one over here, or not use one at all, which is another option. If you're going to use this one over here, I would say even, file it down even more. Basically, 2/3 have to be filed off. Anyhow, that's one thing you can do. Now, my last issue came with the headrest. You can see one's a little off kilter. And the reason that was the case, or one of the things I had to do, was basically because the windshields go on either side and have to fit snugly, you have to be careful when you're gluing those in to make sure you'll have room for that. So I did my best on this side over here, and I did have to trim off just a little of the bottom left and the right side just to make sure that it still goes in and there's room for the windshield. But when I glued this one in, I guess it was a little off kilter. I didn't notice it. I used the micro clear, crystal clear to, for the windshield to glue that in. And I was thinking, I can probably remove that windshield and fix this, but I didn't want to risk it where it strips off the paint, even though probably won't have that, probably wouldn't happen. I didn't want to risk it, so I'm going to live with it the way it is. But it is a shame, again, once right at the very end, that didn't fit. One thing I did not do was get the radiator hose that has, the fabric covering, if you want to call it that, the heat shield. So I just ended up using a regular rubber hose, but it fits in perfectly, and I'm very happy with that. And I got the battery, put the wires into the firewall over here. I put one on this side, one on that side, just to show you that they're not going into the back of the firewall. And again, you can see that wire makes it a little nicer. Very happy with the motor, I might add. So, very cool kit. I want to thank Dan again at 60s Rule for hosting the group build. Oh, one thing I should say is that this fits in perfectly. I want to thank Dan again for hosting the group build again this year. I had a lot of fun. It's a great concept. If he has it again next year, I will join it again. I'm sure I can find something, even if I don't have something right now in my stash. But it's a really cool car, and I love the kit itself. I'm glad I was able to pick it up. I'm fairly happy with my build, although there's always issues. I'm not a perfect builder. I do it the best I can, but I'm very happy with this one. And I've already picked another model for my next build. I'm hoping to add a little teaser at the end of this video. But right now, let's get to the glamour shots, and thanks for watching.
In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those